Katie Pavlich, editor at townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Great to see you, Katie. The New York Post cover says clueless Joe, and then the headline, from inflation to jobs to the border, Biden is flailing. When will the media notice? Surely, I'm sure the White House thinks that this is all much overthinking and overwrought by Republicans, but how do you see it?
Well, they can say that maybe Republicans will pounce on the headlines and rising gas prices and the shortage that we've seen this week and the inflation report. But the bottom line is that Americans are seeing these things as a cost. And so that's a hidden tax for them. And when it comes to the White House arguing these are temporary problems, well, long-term economic policy, long-term Green New Deal energy strategy, where you are eliminating pipelines rather than building more of them, that is something that will have long-term effects and could lead to more weeks like we're seeing this one with the White House having a number of crises piling up as we continue on to Friday.
Back on that Post piece from New York, an anemic recovery, an overrun border, and a seedy White House all make for a crumbling presidency. Might be a little premature for that phrase. Crumbling presidency, Katie.
We're only 112 days in. That is true. Maybe it's not completely crumbling, but this could set the tone for the rest of the presidency if the White House can't get these things under control and that if they don't implement policies that are beneficial to the wallets of everyday middle-class Americans. You have to remember that Joe Biden ran on this idea that he was a guy who's been in Washington for decades. He knows how to lead. He knows how to make big decisions that impact the lives of Americans in a positive way. And when you look at the way they've handled the pipeline crisis, for example, them saying they're going to form a commission to then form another commission to handle the issue, well, that doesn't really do much good when a number of gas stations across the Southeast and on the East Coast are out of gas, meaning people can't get to the grocery store to get their food. They can't get to work. They can't deliver goods to the stores for people to go and buy those goods. So those things have consequences. And when you have Jen Psaki saying, well, we are still going to consider stopping future pipelines depending on the criteria after you see such a detrimental cyber attack on one pipeline, when people are feeling it in their wallets, that certainly has a political impact in the long run.
And then yesterday, Katie, sort of under the radar, but it was news, we should get back to it, because the climate czar, John Kerry, former Secretary of State, testified and was answering questions from Republicans about that call he had with Zarif, the foreign minister, or the supposed communication he had with Zarif, and Zarif's interview in which he said John Kerry gave him secret intel about Israel. Here's what John Kerry said yesterday.
I can't vouch for why he did or what he said. I'm just telling you that didn't happen. End of story.
End of story, Katie?
I don't think that's the end of the story, Dana. I remember when you interviewed the former Secretary of State on the Daily Briefing, and you asked him if he was telling the Iranians to wait out the Trump administration in order to get back into the Iranian nuclear agreement and to get sanctions pulled off. He didn't deny that. And we know that he met with the foreign minister of Iran multiple times in secret to undermine the Trump administration's policy on Iran. And now we're seeing this come to fruition today. You know, Trey is reporting from Israel and Gaza and Hamas launching thousands of rockets into Israel now. That's not just about Hamas and Israel. That's also about the United States and their relationship with Iran, as the State Department is now negotiating to get back into the nuclear agreement right now, which would mean that Iran has billions of more dollars, that sanctions would be taken off of them, and they would have a lot more cash to infuse into terrorist groups like Islamic Jihad, like Hamas, who are now admitting openly and brazenly in videos that they are getting their money and weaponry from Iran. So, you know, John Kerry has a lot to answer for. Republicans have said they want answers and they're going to rely on the inspector generals to do an investigation since they don't have subpoena power. But there are serious questions about John Kerry's holding of a security clearance while he was engaged in these kind of discussions and meetings with the Iranian foreign minister.
Thank you, Katie. We'll see you a bit later today. Katie Pavlich there in Washington, D.C. One other note of the story.
Thanks,
that interview was recorded. It was released from a London outlet. Yeah, you can hear him talk about it. So, I mean, to deny it outright, you wonder what sort of, how that changes this relationship with Zarif and Kerry, which we know goes back years, by the way.
Years and years.